Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Upon Further Review. And today we're going to discuss the pending college football season, whether they will play or whether they will not. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world and definitely sports for the foreseeable future. And the issue at hand is, can college football go on? It's curious because a lot of colleges aren't even going to have fall classes. There's no one even going to be on campus. But as we all know, college football is a huge cash cow and money earner. So they're going to do everything they can to get that money if they can. So far, lots of mid-major football conferences have canceled their fall football seasons with hopes of rejoining in the spring. That leaves the Power Five conferences the biggest and largest conferences in college football. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten have already thrown in the towel for this fall football season. They will not play. That leaves the SEC and the ACC, who are hell-bent on trying to play, and the Big 12 has kind of been on the fence. And a lot of people think they are really the dominoes going to fall. Out of the five, the majority of them cancel. And of the canceled conferences, there are some schools like Nebraska who are absolutely still want to play and don't care what the conference is doing. They're going to seek to find ways to play. The issue is, can this be done safely? COVID-19 has primarily been categorized as a threat to people with pre-existing conditions and older people. Obviously, these college athletes are young, in the prime of their life, and quite healthy, and therefore they're expected to survive. But one of the issues is we do not know the long-term effects of COVID-19. Even some of the high-profile athletes that have got it have still reported symptoms and issues with their lungs, their taste, their smell, and other lingering issues months after having it and getting over the virus, like Von Miller, Rudy Gobert. The Big Ten reported that they had 5 athletes who tested positive for COVID and later were diagnosed with myocarditis. Myocarditis is an inflammation of the heart muscle. That's critical because it's also the condition that has caused 2 high-profile deaths of otherwise seemingly young and healthy athletes. One of the most famous cases was Hank Gathers. He was a forward basketball player for Loyola Marymount, one of the best players in the nation at the time. Back in 1990, he was 23 years old, and he was a high-flying, show-stopping basketball player. And right there, in the middle of an active game, he throws down the alley-oop, goes to get back on defense, and absolutely collapses, unfortunately, to his death on the court. And at the time, they had no idea that he had myocarditis, an inflammation of his heart muscle. His heart failed him, and he died right there in the game. 3 years later, Reggie Lewis, a guard for the Boston Celtics, who comes out of the legendary Dunbar High School Hoops Factory there in Baltimore. I mean, he's an excellent basketball player, drops dead during a practice at the age of 27, otherwise seemingly healthy. Myocarditis is no joke. And right now, the cardiologists around the country are trying to determine if there's a link to COVID-19. And they do not know because they do not have the time, because this pandemic has swept over the world in such an alarming speed and nature. The Big Ten, I've got to say, I applaud them. They see that 5 of their athletes have come down with this and determined that it is not worth it to have a college football season, for a number of reasons, by the way. And the Pac-12 has joined them. Meanwhile, what many would argue is the best college football conference, the SEC, who's home to defending national champion LSU Tigers and the very powerful Alabama football program and many others, they're hell-bent on playing. The ACC, which has Clemson, which has won national titles within the most recent years, one of the top football programs, they're hell-bent on playing. In fact, Clemson's starting quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, has been quite outspoken on social media with, "We want to play." The reality is, at what point does science, caution, and safety for the players come out on top of the need for cold, hard cash? We're already not going to have fans in the stands, though the NFL is trying. The Cowboys are going to try to play in front of fans, and they're leaving it up to individual teams, states, and stadiums to decide if they will have fans or not. They're attempting to proceed with football. Right now, in the MLB, and especially the NBA, is having good success running their seasons. But that's primarily because they are in a bubble. There's no one in, there's no one out. Even for the NFL proceeding, and they held their training camps, they're in a bubble. In fact, today it was announced that a undrafted cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks attempted to sneak a girl into their bubble, was caught on video, and promptly released, most likely ending his career because he was an undrafted free agent, all for the sake of violating these rules. And yet there are some who seem to think that these college students are going to adhere to this both at their bubbles and on their campuses. Either some will have other students there, some will not. And even worse, they're going to travel. They're not going to be in a bubble. You're going to have Alabama traveling to Auburn, traveling to LSU, traveling to Missouri, and other schools, Texas, and other schools that have SEC programs. And I find that to be a wild idea that they think they're going to be able to pull this off when even Major League Baseball is having difficulty doing this. They came to the verge of shutting down and have canceled over a dozen games already in less than a month due to coronavirus. But the money always wins.
This is interesting, and there's a clear distinction. Some people will say, well, the NFL can do it, why can't college? Well, the NFL, they're professional athletes. They are well compensated for what they do, right? And this kind of gets back into, not trying to get too deep into the whole college players need to be paid thing, but NFL players are well compensated to take this risk, and NFL players also have the recourse to opt out and not have their contract told, right? So that they have some options in the matter. College players, if they get sick, if this was to really emancipate one of the players, like you said, long-term health effects, can't play again and they can never play to the same level, that's it for them. That's it. They're done. And God forbid someone actually gets sick enough that has to go to ICU and possibly die. For what? I mean, you're playing uncompensated. Yeah, you get a measly scholarship, but at the end of the day, you're an uncompensated player, right? And is it worth it? It's really tough because you do see some players want to play, and the reason they want to play is, some of them have aspirations to make it to the next level. They feel like they have, they want to show off all the hard work they did to pro personnel and scouts. But I say, man, you can redshirt, clearly this is a medical redshirt if I've ever seen one, and wait another year. It's one of those things where you have to figure, is it really, really worth it? If you have pro level talent and you sat a year, you'll still yet let that pro level talent shine in the next year. But it's a dangerous game to play. Like you said, I don't think there's going to be a way. And you have to remember, college rosters are massive. They're not like the NFL. NFL rosters are massive in them of themselves, but college rosters are almost double the size, right? Massive amount of players in and out, coaching staff. It's just such a big machine, and to move that machine from city to city, expecting them not to go outside and break the rules. I mean, these are young kids. You got to think back when you were 18, 19, 20 years old. And, they're going to do things that college kids do, which is not follow the rules 100% of the time, and you have to account for that. And with that being, with that in the forefront of your mind, it's like, can we safely play this game? I don't necessarily think you can, but at the end of the day, cash rules everything around me, right? That's what these some of these Power 5 conferences are saying. They're saying, look, football pays the bills, and we need to pay the bills. They're looking at advertising dollars. They're looking at these TV deals. They're looking at support from their boosters, right, and sponsors. They need this money, right? And it's a shame to say that an institution of higher learning and higher education is beholden to a sport, right? But they're dependent so much on football that they can't seem to financially function without it. You have some schools are having to just flat out cut and get rid of other sports because they're going to miss a year of college football. That tells you how lopsided the dynamic is in college sports, that football holds this much power, right? You already know that a lot of the highest paid state employees in most of these states are head coaches of college football teams because they're technically state employees, right? It shows you how much power that this will. So will these other conferences do it? You know, I don't think so. I think they're going to give it a try. I think for all these other conferences that they would need enough players, an outbreak to happen where a lot of people on one team got sick or one person gets really sick and has to go to the ICU. Something's going to happen to me that I think that would cause them to change their mind. Because at this point, I think they're going to go full steam ahead. And mind you, we are still in the first wave of this virus, right? They have been talking about the second wave, and they keep remembering that the second wave starts in the fall, right? We are still in the first wave, and then the following on the second wave, compounded by things like the flu and the common cold and other things that creep back up. It's going, and the virus being more easily transmitted. It's not going away anytime soon. And with things possibly getting worse, you have to ask, do we really want these college players risking their lives, for something that they can legitimately redshirt the next year and, get the season back? Do we want to essentially, pimp out these kids so these remaining Power Five conferences can pay their bills? It's a disturbing thing when you think about it because you're moving these kids like cattle. They clearly, you can tell that they don't care about their health and well-being. Because I look at some of these practices and I'm looking at, I mean, heck, they can't even get regular high school right. So what makes you think you're gonna get college right with moving more players? It's not possible.
They're out here chasing this desperately because it's about the money. And I think this is really going to be the final death knell of amateur sports because it's being laid bare. They are desperate to get this college football money. And the sad part is, even if they play, the money's not going to be the same. They're not going to be able to pack stadiums. They're not going to be able to have all the fandom and pageantry that goes along with it. They're going to be playing for TV dollars. And the sad reality is, I'm ashamed of a lot of these coaches and a lot of these chancellors and administrators, people making millions of dollars off of the unpaid labor of these broke college students. And yeah, if you think you have a chance to make it to the league, like look at Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow was maybe a sixth-round pick, if not going to the league as an undrafted free agent. And he had a spectacular season last year, results in him winning a national championship, having one of the greatest college quarterback seasons ever, number one overall pick. And he tweeted this. Without last season, he would not be where he is. He might be, looking for a job, a regular one. And I get that. I think the best solution is, in the name of safety, in the name of the kids, is to simply cancel the season and extend everyone's eligibility. Let them play again, try again next year when we have time to get this stuff together. The NFL is not sure what they're going to do and how long it's going to last. It's one thing to give it a good try, but once you now have multiple people being diagnosed with rare and dangerous heart diseases, especially athletes. I don't know if the athletes are somehow more prone to it or what have you. Eduardo Rodriguez, baseball player for the Red Sox, had COVID-19, and now he too has myocarditis. So there's definitely been enough cases of this link to cause alarm, and that should be enough to have caution if your reality is you are about students first. Let them go to school, let them learn. Then athletes second. The student athlete conundrum has always been a farce for those of us who've been through it, like you and I have, Mike. We used to play college football. But the reality is, this exposes it to its core. There are some people who even say the Big Ten and Pac 12 decided to cancel their seasons because they did not want to run the risk. Out in the Big 12, they had a huge movement of their players aligning and organizing, possibly becoming a players association and or union. And of course, we had a good case with Northwestern, they lost that, but they wanted to become a non-union, but just a players association to fight for and negotiate the rights of their players during this COVID-19. They didn't want to have to deal with that because if you have that, that will eventually lead to unionization and them having to pay. And every person who's ever been about paying players can take a look at what we see going on here and prove that the naked ball reality is college football runs all of sports and basketball too, for especially with March Madness, $1 billion tournaments, but men's basketball and college football they are the kings of it all. There are campuses that are closed and they're going to have remote learning. Meanwhile, their athletic director and their school president is like, oh, no, we're going to be here on campus and we're going to be playing football. There's nothing you guys are going to do about it. That's haunting. You got millionaire coaches out here demanding that these kids risk their damn lives and play football so they can make more money, so they can keep it. And I get it. People love the sport. You want to play it. Football it's an excellent sport. I love football myself. I want to see it too. But the reality is, these are supposed to be amateurs. These are supposed to be students, first and above everything else. For them to be taking this risk with the myocarditis flying around, knowing that even in the NFL, undrafted pros for Seahawks, they're busting the bubble. No pun intended. You have guys doing stuff like that, and you think college students are going to fly? They haven't even gotten to the thick of it. What's going to happen when they start winning games? I guess they're not celebrating. I guess they're not going out. I guess the coach is going to be able to watch them 24/7. All 90 some odd people on the roster as they come and go in locker rooms and everywhere. And I'm going to tell you this, a lot of the mid-majors shut down because they don't have the money to pay for these daily expedited testing to keep up these protocols. In the NBA and NFL, MLB, NHL, they got millions to spend on that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, they're willing to spend it and risk it for a season that, even if it could get a game or two, probably won't be able to finish. It's a damn shame. Cancel the season, give these kids extended eligibility so they have a chance to play. That way, anybody who, is trying to fight for their NFL dream, you get more time to train, more time for the injured ones, get more time to heal, and you get to come back later and try it again. That is what is best for student athletes, and that is without question. You have people using the words tragedy. It will be a tragedy if they cancel the season, et cetera, et cetera. That's not a tragedy. Tragedy is somebody dropping dead out there on the field. Tragedy is death. Tragedy is bringing COVID-19 to these communities, them taking it home, and people dying for it. The entire world economy, the entire world habits and patterns have been disrupted by this, but you think college football is so important that we've got to do this no matter what the risk? That's insane to me. They need to start paying these players just based on this alone. And they need to cancel the season if your true concern is children first.
I really, hope they think about this. Like I said, let this be a medical red shirt that everybody can take. You extend your college career, you come back the next year, you get it together, and you show what you got on the field. It's just not worth it, man. You see people, athletes and regular people alike having long-lasting effects. I'm seeing people that had confusion and loss of balance and, just loss of quality of life. They still don't have their breathing together, right? And this is months and months after they've already defeated COVID, right? Nobody knows the long-term effects of this virus, and it can mess with your cardiovascular system. That is nothing to be trifled with. I think more research has to be done. Causation doesn't necessarily mean causality, and we know that, but we also know that it's so early in the game. At least let a little bit of research, have some targeted research, go that. I would love to see the NCAA and NFL and all these major sports teams really fund research to make sure and roll this out. I mean, what could the harm be? I mean, if it is, then you have to start screening players for the condition. But if not, at least you have some peace of mind. But I think, we just got to take a step back and really evaluate what's really important here. Like you said, this virus has been a major disruptor in everybody's lives. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their lives, family members. It's been very devastating on the world stage. And if we have to go a year without football, so be it. College football, I like watching it on Saturday. I'm not the biggest college football fan, but I've been growing and following the sport more and more year after year. And I was looking forward to following it again this year. But hey, we can do without it for a year if it means keeping these amateur, non-compensated athletes safe, right? Like I said, the pros, I can hear the argument because they're paid and have the ability to opt out, this, and that, and the other, and their contract won't toll. I can understand trying to at least kicking the wheels on that. But for, amateur athletes, I really can't see it. Um, it's just really dangerous. I know some of these kids want to play, and look, some of these kids, look, they're stupid, right? They're young and dumb, right? They don't know what's not, they don't know what's best for them at this point, right? This is where you would expect, seasoned leadership from your coaching staff. This is where you would expect your athletic director, your campus and the college president to step in and say, "Hey, wait a minute. Even though I know you guys are amped up and young, you think you're, invincible. You think this virus won't have any effect on you, even if you do get it, but it's still a lot of stuff we don't know, and we need to shut it down for your sake." Because, right now we see that young people are not making the best decisions. And I'm saying young people like I'm 50 years old, but you see people, even in our age group, we're in our early 30s, not making the best decisions, still going out having COVID parties and, house parties and pool parties and all types of nonsense, right? You can't get just regular people under control. You're not going to get amped up athletes, under control. It's just not going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out if they do go forward with it. What kind of policy procedures they're going to try to put in place. I have a feeling that it's even if they get out the gate, it's not going to last long. Like I said, that second wave is coming. People keep forgetting about it. People think things, oh, we're getting back to normal. Oh, okay, well, this is, maybe we're starting to get a vaccine, or maybe we got see promising news of this, but that vaccine is a while away. That vaccine's not here yet, And then once that vaccine gets approved and put on market, it takes time to actually manufacture that thing, ship it everywhere, and start dosing people. I mean, that's gonna be a long endeavor, long drawn out process. So yeah, we got to think a little bit carefully when it comes to the lives of people who think they're invincible, especially our college students, and got to figure out is it worth it? Is the money worth it? I said no. I say life is more important than money, but
Absolutely. What's interesting is they announced that the football championship subdivision will not be having fall championships this year. And of course, for people who don't know, Division One football is separated because the football championship division, they literally play a 16-team tournament and have a national champion. Versus the football bowl subdivision, they go to the big bowl games, and those are the biggest programs to prove the Power Five. So at the FCS, or the old 1AA level, Southland Conference, Southern Conference, the MEAC, the Ohio Valley, the SWAC, all of these conferences have announced that they will not play this fall in any sport. In any sport. Apparently, they know something that the others do not. And the big thing is, for them, it is, while football still earns a ton of money, it is not the billion-dollar industry that it is the FBS. Well, this decision by the NCAA president doesn't affect the FBS. And in reality, it shows just how little control the NCAA truly has in the almighty power of the dollar of college football. The entire control of the NCAA and the entire facade of amateurism is coming apart at the seams. And it's coming apart because they're pushing these kids to go out there and play for free and risk it. And the interesting part is some schools are whipping out waivers to do so. If everything's fine, why do we need to sign a waiver to continue to practice and to continue to play? These adults who have made millions off the backs of these children are being exposed. And you can see who cares about children's lives first over entertainment. And it's quite easy to see that stark contrast. And maybe people should think about that, even especially when it comes to where you're sending kids to school. Because this is what treating athletes like cattle looks like. They want to put them out there no matter what. And I think there's a lot of political pressure in certain areas. I'm shocked to see Trevor Lawrence even advocating for this, because the reality is he's going to be the number one pick if he doesn't play another snap. But he wants to go out there and play. And I honestly suspicious he came up with that on his own. We know that there's been phone calls between the president and Trevor Lawrence and Ed Orgeron And the reality is playing for college football has become the next culture battle instead of putting the science and putting safety and caution above everything else. If you tell me that, I use that analogy, I've used it in the past, 99 M&Ms are completely fine, but one of them will kill you. Just stick your hand in that bowl and eat a handful. It's not worth it. Some things are not worth the risk, apparently, unless there's enough money involved. Put the kids first, cancel the fall sports, work on solutions and testing and protocol, because not even the pro leagues have this down pat. Extend the eligibility for the kids that are affected. Let them be students for a semester. Train, and you even practicing your own bubbles. Give them that, where they're in their own bubble, but they're when you ask them to go travel and play other people in a full contact sport where you will sweat and you will bleed on one another, there's no responsibility in that, and it's up for the adults to finally put a stop to it.
We'll see how this plays out. So once again, we're interested to hear, what you guys say. We want to start trying to incorporate some of you guys' feedback. So let us know, how we're doing. Let us know what you think about some of the topics we're talking about. Be sure to like, rate, review, subscribe, follow, all those things. Really helps us out a lot. Thank you guys for listening. And we'll continue to monitor this and keep talking about it as it goes on. I'll be interested, Troy, to see if this thing is off the ground. Hey, once again, this is Mike and Troy. We'll continue, like I said, continue to follow this and update you guys of any developments, our takes on what's going on. And we'll talk to you later. We're out. Peace.